My name is Tom Kent. I'm with the Madeira Stories Live group that plans these events on behalf of the city of Madeira. So it's my pleasure to introduce you tonight, Councilman Chad Schaefer, who's going to be your host for this really interesting presentation coming up. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Tom, very much. And you don't know it because it's behind the scenes, but Tom does a lot of work to make events like these happen. And let's give him one more big round of applause because I got to see it firsthand, and have to tell you, the Inclusion Committee in general has done a phenomenal job of reaching out, telling stories of various facets and aspects of our community. So I have to give them a lot of credit. We've heard a lot of great stories. We've dealt with a lot of different subjects, and I think it's been fantastic for the community and brings us all together as one community. So thank you for all the work of the Inclusion Committee. David, I see Tom. I'm probably missing some of you. You know who you are. You do wonderful work, and the Madeira Stories Live in particular has been a great add to our community here. So I think it's a testament of how many people have come out this evening to hear from our local veterans. And last year, I think Tom and I were chatting, and I said, I don't know that we've done anything with veterans. It'd be wonderful to hear from some of our local veterans that have served our country and some of their backgrounds. My family is an Air Force family, so my father was a captain in the Air Force, and my brother retired as a Chief Master Sergeant. So I grew up around military and definitely honor and respect what they do and willing to put their life on the line and sacrifice on our behalf. So I respect that very deeply. We have a great lineup this evening. We have Shane Evanshine. Did I get that correct?
Sir.
Thank you. Thank you. He was telling me how to pronounce his name before, so I was like, I can't miss this now. We have Claire Heinzler, and we also have Paul Fossey. Paul and I coached sixth grade football together, so we have a lot of history and a lot of blood, sweat, and tears went into that. So first and foremost, I would like to introduce our first speaker, who is Shane Evanshine. Some of you may know Shane owns the Shine barbershop on Miami Avenue. So if you need a trim, please go down and see Shane. Shameless plug there for you.
Appreciate it.
I don't have much to shave, so I might come in and get my beard trimmed up or something. So Shane is a veteran of the Air Force, and his story is called simply My Story. Welcome, Shane.
Thank you, Chad. I really do appreciate it. I also want to thank Allie, owner of Allie's Bar and Grill. Special shout out. Thank you for providing the food this morning and connecting me with Mr. Tom Kent, who heads up the Madeira Stories Live program. And thank you, Tom, for giving me the opportunity to be here to speak with you guys today. When I was asked to do this about a month ago, I was like, what am I going to talk about? And my wife and some of my friends, we're out and about. We're always talking to people, and I'll go up to people and just ask them, what's your story? And sometimes they'll tell you, and it's very brief, and you're like, no, what's your story? Like, give me the meat and potatoes. And people will really open up and tell you their story. So tonight, I'm going to tell you my story. I hope you can take something from it, you enjoy it, and it'll apply it to your life moving forward. My name is Shane Evanshine, owner of Shine Barbershop in downtown Madeira. I was born and raised here in Cincinnati, Ohio, in the Eastgate area. Normal kid growing up, playing basketball, playing sports, got into skateboarding until I grew to be very tall. I was raised primarily by my father and my stepmother. Up until high school, I just started getting very rebellious. I just got out of control. I lost my way, lost direction. I was just being a wild man in life. At age 16, my parents asked me to leave the house, where I went to live with my grandmother. From there, I got kicked out of there, lived with my sister. I was living with different friends on their couches. And, I ended up barely graduating high school in the year 2000 with all of that. I just kind of lost my way when I was younger. And at 19, I started working at Foot Action because I was always into shoes and Jordans and et cetera. But I always had this thought, like, I feel like I have more. Like, what do I want to do with my life? I can't work at Foot Action forever. So I went and talked to a recruiter. I took the ASVAB test. I scored very high on that, which it's kind of just like a placement test, like a SAT or an ACT for someone in high school. And the recruiter basically was like, you can do any job you want. So I went and looked at all the jobs, and I read air traffic control, and he's like, "You sure you want to do that? That's a very low success rate." But I knew as soon as I read the description, that's what I wanted to do. Is if you can guarantee me that job, I'll sign up. So at that point, I signed up. I enlisted with a guaranteed job as air traffic control, and off I went to basic training in April of 2002. Basic training basically is what you see in the movies. You go in, it's a 6 to 8 week program. They tear you down to build you back up. But I went there as a lost young boy and left becoming a young man just in that short time. From there, I went to air traffic control technical training in Biloxi, Mississippi. I was very intimidating going in there, just given the nature of the success rate. But it was one of those things. I loved it. And before I go any further with air traffic control, a lot of people don't quite understand what it is. It's not this. It can be the tower. Tower is one portion of it. That's more just kind of like ground movement and kind of close to the airport. But I work the radar portion, which is pretty much when the wheels come up and they say, up off the ground, we would start working them. And when they start coming in, we controlled everything until 5 miles from the airport. I ended up graduating number 1 in my class. And with about a week to go, we were getting our assignments and they say, Evanshine. I said, yes, sir. They said, Grand Forks, North Dakota. And I said, dang it. But Grand Forks, North Dakota ended up being one of my favorite assignments. I met so many people there that I got so close with. It was such a great place to learn the profession because not only would you control the base, we controlled the international airport, which had the busiest flying school in the nation. So it was just a great overall experience. One of my favorite things about it is, coming from here, I felt like a little sheltered young child, and we lived in the dorms, and my friend group was so great. We had, the Mexican guy from Southern California. We had the African-American guy from Southern Louisiana. We had the Kansas boy with the belt buckle and the cowboy boots. We had the Florida boy with the spiky hair and the visor. And then we had me, the tall, lanky Midwest boy. But we grew so close, and I still talk to a lot of those people 25 years later, nearly 25 years later now. From there, I went to Kunsan Air Base in South Korea. That was a total different transition going to a foreign country. I didn't know anyone or anything that was going on. I get there and it's, there's people bouncing off of me at the airport. I'm like, what is going on? It was a 15-hour flight to get there. Like I said, and it was just, I lost my spot for a second. Oh yeah, at the airport, I'm walking around, and since I was so tall, people were asking me to pose for pictures with them. So I'm taking pictures. I had to take a 4-hour bus ride after the long flight down where I met up with everybody else that had been there and traveled together, and they had already built those relationships. And I get on the scene and they're like, where are you from? I said, Grand Forks, North Dakota. And it was almost comical. They were looking down on me. Fast forward about 3 months later, I ended up training them on how to do the profession. The 1-year assignment in Korea was different because there was no families allowed. So even if you're married with kids, nobody can go over there with any family. So you get really close to each other because you're all in it together. You're all living in the dorms. You're surrounded by each other all the time. So I was coming up on the end of my enlistment. So on my last day in Korea, I ended up re-enlisting because I just didn't think I was quite ready to get out and go into the real world. So I re-enlisted for some financial stability. I wanted to get some mid-level management experience, just kind of grow as a person and further myself a little bit more before I took the next step. So I re-enlisted, and then I went to Moody Air Force Base in South Georgia. You'll see signs for it. We all Cincinnatians, we go to Florida all the time. You see signs for Moody Air Force Base in Valdosta when you get a little bit further south, and that's where I was. So next time you're making that trip and you see it, think of me. There I became a supervisor and led a 17-person crew daily. It was something that I really did enjoy. It was a different thing looking out for not just myself, but a team as a whole. But I really matured into it and enjoyed it. In early 2007, given my experience and everything I'd done up to that point, I was asked to deploy to Balad Air Base, Iraq, in support of Operation Iraqi Freedom. Oddly enough, that was probably one of my best and one of my worst assignments. The people I met there was so great, but then the things I saw and witnessed, people shouldn't see. Landing in a wartime environment was a total different transition. Your Grand Forks and Korea are one thing, but you land in a wartime environment. Again, I didn't know anybody. We're getting attacked all the time. It was the busiest airspace in the world at the time because it was the peak of the war. I come in there and I'm like, what is going on? But the people I met there, we spent every waking moment together. So we would work all day together, and then we would go hang out afterwards, and it was just so close. We got so close. Still talk to a lot of them today as well. And then one of my favorite stories I like to tell about Iraq, we did some volunteer work where we were loading people that had been injured in combat onto the plane to get better care in Germany. So we're loading this. I'm trying to nurture this guy that as we're going to the hospital, and he's sedated. He's got a bunch of shrapnel, and I'm trying to nurture him because he begins to have a seizure, and my nurturing wasn't working. So the nurse next to me came up and helped him out and just calmed him down. A couple of minutes later, I have this gentleman that I need to pick up and get on the plane, and I go to pick him up, and he's so heavy. And I'm like, why is this guy so heavy? And it's because he didn't have any legs. It was a ventilator where his legs were supposed to be that was providing him, keeping him alive. So we loaded him on the base, and that's just one of those things, just kind of, it just sticks with you. It's one, you don't think about it, but when you're sitting there and you see it firsthand, it really does stick with you. So about 6 months after being there, we're all crying in each other's arms because we're all heading back, but we were extremely close. And, I love those people so much. I head back to Moody Air Force Base, and the transition from the fast-paced wartime environment to back to the civilian world is like total different speed. It's like slowing down. It was one, you hear people talk about stuff all the time where if you're out and about, coming back from that, you hear things, but it is like that. You'll be at the grocery store and you'll hear a cart hit something, you're like, whoa. And you don't, that fades with time, but you think it's like a bomb just because that's what you're used to. Moody was in the middle of a mission change at the time, so it was very slow. And at this point, I told myself, like, I'm going to get out of the service. And I was like, I don't know if I want to stay here. It was just, I was getting bored. I didn't feel myself moving forward in my career at that time. So I decided to go back to Kunsan Air Base in 2008 to finish my enlistment. I wanted to finish up some college courses and just further my leadership skills and just grow more in preparation for getting out, which I separated honorably from the Air Force in 2010 after about 8.5 years of service. From there, every air traffic controller's dream is to work for the FAA. That's the big dog. That's the big jets. So I networked with my dear friend from the military from Grand Forks that I met that was part of that crew. He was the spiky guy, Florida guy. And I headed out to San Francisco. During that 6-month transition while I was home here in Cincinnati, I met my now beautiful wife, Ashley. It was supposed to just be a summer of fun, going to country concerts, hanging out, but it developed more than that. So I asked her, I'm like, do you want to go to California? And she said, yeah, I'll go. So off we went in early 2011. Once we got out there, I was assigned to control San Francisco Airport, and I absolutely loved it. It was just, I flourished. I was like, yes, I finally made it. This is like something I dreamed of. I always explain to people when they talk about, what's the difference between like controlling airplanes in the Air Force versus like the FAA. It's like going from the minor leagues to the major leagues. So after about 4 years there, we decided that we wanted to get back closer to Cincinnati. And we had the option to either go to either Charlotte or Atlanta. My ego got in the way. I wanted to work the busiest airport. So we moved to Atlanta, and that's where our beautiful daughter, Olivia, right here, she's 10 years old now at Indian Hill. That's where she was born. After she was born, it was just, we were having trouble balancing life. I was working so much. I was working 6 days a week, 10 hours a day. It just didn't seem like it was the right fit for us. So we wanted to head back out west. So we went back out west. We moved to Scottsdale, where I controlled Phoenix Airport. So we were there for a couple years, but the ultimate goal was to get to California. And then I got a call from my boss, like, that previous boss at California was like, we'll give you a raise if you come back. So off we go back to California. That was an easy transition. We moved right back in, I was working in the same section, controlling San Francisco. We lived right up the street from where we used to live. It was a lot of the same faces, and everything was going great till around 2017. I started having some like real bad, like PTSD, panic, and anxiety issues. And at first it would only happen in certain situations, like if I was like driving on a bridge, or if I was in the mountains, or if I was a passenger in a car. But it developed into something where I couldn't do anything. I had to say something to work about it. I couldn't go to the grocery store. I couldn't go out to eat. I couldn't go get my hair cut. And there was times where I would just sit there and I would start crying, and she'd be like, why are you crying? I'm like, I don't even know. It was just my system, I think, was just overloaded with just all the years of stress, and I didn't even realize it. So I had to say something to work about that. And then obviously that's not a good mix, being an air traffic controller, having PTSD and anxiety. So I was forced to, I lost my career and I was forced to medically retire in 2019. Basically at that point, life regroup mode. What are we going to do? I just lost my career that I've dedicated my entire adult life to, that I had a passion for. So I kind of took a step back to focus on my mental health and just kind of get everything together. I started running a lot, just enjoying the California lifestyle as much as we could. Then COVID happened. So after a couple years of, just kind of hanging out and regrouping, there was nothing keeping us in California at that point. Our daughter was getting ready to start kindergarten. So let's head back home to Cincinnati. So we moved back home to Cincinnati. Oddly enough, that was a very difficult transition from us. Even though we're both from here, my wife grew up in Madeira, it was just a total shock to the system going from the California lifestyle coming back to Ohio. I didn't know, I lost my sense of purpose at that point. Again, I'm like, well, now what am I going to do? It's cool, I don't have to work, but I need to do something with my life. I'm not moving forward. I'm just kind of stagnant. So I thought about going back to school to be a mental health therapist. I'm like, that would be good. I could help people. But then I was always into getting my hair cut. And, basically that's a therapist in an informal way. I don't have to do any paperwork. I like connecting with people, and just the whole barbershop vibe is something I really enjoyed. So in late 2022, I went to barber school as a 39-year-old man up in Dayton, Ohio. All the young kids up there, they looked at me when I walked in, and they were acting funny for the first couple weeks. I'm like, what's going on, guys? They're like, dude, we thought you were an undercover cop. So no, not an undercover cop. And then they were like, no, it turns out you're an OG. That's what they would always tell me. But barber school was great. I graduated from barber school, and then I was just kind of looking for something to do, and I wanted some flexibility. So I worked at a local shop here to develop my skills. And at that point, I'm driving down, we're driving down Miami. It was kind of in the back of my mind, should we open up a shop? Driving down Miami, and I see this spot on the way. We were on our way to Sunday dinner at her parents' house. And I'm like, let's take a look at this. And it looked great. And I'm like, man, this place looks awesome. So we called, the guy come and looked at it. At this point, I had zero clue on how to run a business. I wasn't even confident in cutting hair, to be honest with you. But we took a leap of faith, and Shine Barbershop opened in September of 2024. It's been nothing but a success since day one. The community supported it so well. After about 6 months of being open, we welcomed barber AJ Abney to the team. AJ, if you want to stand up real quick. And it's been so great. I am so glad he's on the team. I am so fortunate to get to work next to him every day. I really do appreciate you, man. I really do. We look forward to being a part of the community moving forward, just providing a welcoming atmosphere, helping people smile, just come in, have fun. That's what we do there. It's just, even if you're driving by, if you don't want a haircut, just come in and say hi. We have people come in all the time, and we're in there being goofy, and they say, man, I was in a really bad mood until I came in here. So it's just, I really do enjoy it. So with that, that's my story. Everybody has one. Hold on, I'm not done. I got the closing. Everyone has a story. There's so many variables and situations that happen in your life, relationships, timing, that create each individual story, each person's story. You learn things throughout life that help create and navigate who you are as a person. I was lost, young little pup when I was younger, but the military taught me the tools to never give up and keep moving forward. Keep working hard. That, coupled with meeting so many different people from so many different backgrounds, upbringings, perspectives, it allowed me to learn from them so much and grow. And that made me who I am today. Before I joined the military, I couldn't even look somebody in the eye and order food. Now I just sat up here. This is my second speech in a week. It was a 15-minute speech. So it's just things in life make you uncomfortable, and you just have to grip it and rip it and keep moving forward. That's just how it is. So thank you guys so much for listening to me today. I hope you took something positive from this. I really do appreciate it. Let's enjoy the next couple speakers.
Thank you, Shane. Thank you for your service as well. And you did say you graduated high school in 2000. Is that right? Yes, sir. That makes me an OG as well. So I graduated the same year. So thank you so much.